We begin today from the Mishnah on Daf Pei Tes Amud Aleph, 6 lines down from the top of the Amud. So this is the Mishnah that continues the halachas of the Zokim Mamre. This is the Zokin of a Bezdin that is rebelling against the Bezdin of 71 in Yerushalayim in the Lishkas HaGazis. And he goes back to his city and he teaches and paskins and instructs people to act differently than the Psak of the Bezdin. So he's Chayiv Misa, he's Chayiv Chenek. He is not put to death, not by the Bezdin of his city, the Bezdin of 23 that's in every city, even if they are the ones that actually judge him and give the verdict that he's Chayiv Misa, but the actual Psak Din cannot be done by his Bezdin in his city, and also not even by the Bezdin of 71 if they are now in Yavne. Now he could only be a Zokim Mamre if the Bezdin was in the Lishkas HaGazis. As we learned before in the Gemara, you go up and there the question was asked, and then he disagrees or he rebels against the Bezdin, and he goes back to his city and he does differently. But as Rashi here brings, what does it mean when it says in the Mishnah Bezdin should be Yavne? After the Sanhedrin went into Golos, they were in Yavne. The Beis HaMikdash was still standing, and so he's going to be Chayiv Misa, but it can't be done by the Bezdin which is in Yavne. He has to go up to the Bezdin Agadol which is in Yerushalayim. And there in Yerushalayim you have to wait until the Yom Tif. We're on Pei Tes in the Mishnah. Pei Tes. And there at the time during the Yom Tif, which is on Cholamayit, not on Yom Tif itself, there's only there you can give him the Chiyuv of Misa. On the Lashon of the Mishnah, it says they bring him back to the Bezdin HaGadol in Yerushalayim. Even though we just said that the Bezdin is in Golos, doesn't necessarily mean that the Bezdin HaGadol was then in Yerushalayim because they were already in Yavne, or at the time of Yom Tif maybe, the Bezdin HaGadol returned to the Lishkas HaGazis. Now how do we know that he has to be brought to Yerushalayim in the time of a Yom Tif, and only then could they give him the Chiv Misa? Shenemar, because when the pasuk says the Chiyav Misa by the Zokim Mamre, the pasuk says V'chol ha'am yishmu v'yiro, all the people will hear and will see V'lo yizidonoi, and they won't sin again. They won't do like this Zokim Mamre. So you see, there has to be in a time where all Yidden are gathered together by the Yom Tif. Can't just be a Chiyav Misa in one place in his city where he lives. Divrei Rabbi Akiva, this is Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, however, Rabbi Yehuda says, Ein ma'anan as dina shulzeh. We do not delay or afflict the judgment of this individual and make him wait until the next Yom Tif to go up to Yerushalayim, and he knows already he's Chayiv Misa. Elam Misa Noisa Miyad. We give him the Chayiv Misa immediately, just like it is with any case of someone that's Chayiv Misa, that you have to give him the Misa immediately. The pasuk says V'cholam Yishmu V'yiro. The Kaisvim V'shelchen Shluchim B'cholam Mekaymes. So then you write and you send Shluchim, agents, to go in all places to say and to let people know Ish Pliny Mischayev Misa B'Bezdin, that so and so was Chayev Misa in Bezdin, and that's how you fulfill the pasuk V'cholam Yishmu V'yiro. Tana Rabbanan and Abraisi we learned that explains this machlekes of Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Akiva says we don't give him Misa loy bebezdin should be Iroi, not in a Bezdin of 23 that it's in his city. V'loy bebezdin should be Yavne, not by the Bezdin, even the Bezdin of 71 that's now in Yavne. Elomayin noisai lebezdin agadol should be Yerushalayim. He's brought to Yerushalayim u'mishamrim noisai, and then we wait ad haregel until the Yom Tif, and when all Yidden come, and then Misa noisai beregel, then he's given Misa at the time of the Yom Tif. Shenem, as the pasuk says, V'chol ha'am yishmu v'yiro, like we learned in the Mishnah. So I mentioned before, it's not on the Yom Tif itself, but it's on Cholamayid, but it can't be on Yom Tif itself. Right. Correct. Okay. Divrei Rabbi Akiva, this is Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda, so Rabbi Yehuda says to him, V'chinemar yiru v'yiro. When it says this, that all the Yidden should hear about this, it says yishmu. They hear about this. It doesn't necessarily say that they have to be there and see when they're giving him the Misa. They should hear and they should be afraid. So why would we then afflict his judgment and make him wait until the Yom Tif when all Yidden are there and are able to see? It's not necessary. His Chiyav Misa is fulfilled immediately. And then the case from Shluchim b'chol mokim ish plain in his Chayiv Misa bebezdin. And then you write and you send out Shluchim to notify what happened, that this person was in his Chayiv Misa in the Bezdin. Tan Rabbanon and Abraisa we learned there are actually 4 that are Chayiv Misa, that it has to be announced about their fulfillment of the Misa in order that others should take a lesson from this and should be subdued. Hamesis, one that is convincing others to serve Avodah Zarah. Or Ben Seira Meire, the one that is the Ben Seira Meire at the age of about 13, that goes away from his parents and does the things that we learned before in the Masechta, that's Chayiv Misa. The Zakim Mamre that we're talking about here. And the Eidim Zaimimin. Eidim that testify, and then a second group comes and says, Yimanu Ayisim B'Makom Ploini, and they're found to be false witnesses. B'Kulu Ksiv B'Hu, by all of them it says, the expression in the Pasuk, either it says, V'chol Ha'am Yishmu V'Yiro, all the people should hear and see, or it says, V'chol Yisrael Yishmu V'Yiro, that all the Yidden should see. Now, B'Eidim Zaimimin Ksiv, by Eidim Zaimimin, there the Pasuk uses a little bit of a different expression. It says, V'Hanish Arim, the ones that remain, they are going Yishmu V'Yiro. They will see, hear and see. Why doesn't it say Chol Yisrael or Kol Ha'am? Why is it only say Hanish Arim and not all Yidden? Because not everybody is fit to be a witness, so it doesn't refer to all Klal Yisrael. Rashi says if it's someone that is a gazlan, or he lent money on interest, or other cases, he's pasal edus, so he can't say edus anyways. So he doesn't have to take a lesson from this that happened to the Eidim Zaimimin, not to say false testimony. That's why it only uses the term v'hanish arim. So this was the last, this Mishnah here is going to conclude explaining the cases that were mentioned at the beginning of this Perek about those that are chayiv the Misa of Chenek. So Navi HaSheker, a false prophet. And he also, someone that says prophecy of something that he did not hear from Hashem. Or this is a prophecy that his friend heard from Hashem, but it wasn't said to him. And he repeats this, and he says this. Misasai b'dei Adam. His Misa, these three cases, they are chayiv Misa, Chenek, b'dei Adam through the Bezdin. But then there's other cases, Aval HaKovish es Nevuasai, a Navi that holds back of sharing his Nevuah, of saying the prophecy. V'amavatar al divrei Navi, or someone that disregards the words of a Navi, doesn't listen. Or a Navi she'over al divrei Atzmai, or a Navi that does not keep himself the words that he heard from Hashem. So these three individuals, their Misa is in the hands of Hashem from heaven. Shenema, regarding these, the Pasuk says, Anoichi edresh mi'imai. I will demand from them, the Rebbe says, I will give them Misa. Now, one that says prophecy in the name of Avodah Zarah, and he says, Kach omra Avodah Kechavim, this is what Avodah Zarah says to do. Even if he's saying in the name of Avodah Zarah something which is supposed to be according to halacha. L'tamei is hatamei, to say that what's tamei is tamei, l'tayr is hatayr, and what's tayr should be tayr. In this case, as the Mishnah will conclude, he'll be chayiv misa chenek. Now, in the next case that was mentioned also already in the beginning of this Perek, halba al eshes ish, one that has a relation with an eshes ish. What is the definition of an eshes ish? This is as opposed to a naira hamayrasa. After the first stage of marriage, one that has a relation with this naira, Yechayev skila. But here that we're talking about the Eishes Ish, when she's fully married, and Yechayev chenek. As soon as she enters into the domain of the husband for full marriage. And as it was brought already earlier in the Masechta, they would send a shliach to bring the woman, the wife, to the husband, even if she just left her father's home. She's on the way to the husband. Even she did not have yet a relation with her husband. The one that has a relation with her, she's not anymore in the house of her father. She's not anymore ma'orasa, but now it is after nisuin, and the misa will be chenek. The final case, by the baskayin, as we learned earlier in the Masechta, that if she is mizana with someone, she gets sreife. However, if there were false witnesses that testified about her, so the witnesses always get the punishment that they intended to give this person. But in this case, the Zaimimin, these false witnesses that testified about this Baskayan, and Ubayala, and besides the Baskayan, the one that had the relation with her, so they do not get Sreifa, rather they get Chenek. Shekala Muzamin, all those Eidim that are found to be false, Makdim Eloisa Misa, they get the very same Misa that they intended to give this person. Chutz mizaymim baskayin ubayala. Besides, here in this case, the zaymimin, the Eidim zaymimin that testified against the baskayin and the bayal as well, only get chenek. As we had before, Rashi brought that by the baskayin it says he be'esh tisaref, that only her, not the bayal, and by kashazama the pasuk says kashazama mlases la'ochiv, to the brother and not to the sisters, and therefore what they intended to give this baskayin will not apply to them. They don't get sreifa, but they get only chenek. So in a Braisa we learned regarding the details that it said regarding a Navi. Shloisha misasim b'dei Adam, there are three that they're going to be chayiv misa by the bezdin b'dei adam. Shloisha, and then there are three misasam b'dei shemayim. Their misa will be b'dei shemayim, as the Mishnah listed this, and here the Brisa will say more details about this. So now hamisnabe mashalei shama, a navi that says a prophecy of what he did not hear from Hashem. Or it was not said to him, it was said to another Navi. Or one that says Nevuah in the name of Avodah Zarah, Misasam b'dei Adam. So their Misa is here in the hands of a person in the Bezdin. A Navi that holds back of sharing his prophecy. One that disregards the word of a Navi. And or a Navi that is not following the prophecy that he himself heard from Hashem, misasam b'dei shemayim. Their misa is in the hands of Hashem. So minon amili, what is the source for this? Om Rav Yudah Marav. So Rav Yudah says in the name of Rav, the pasuk says, Ach hanavi asher yazid ledaber davar b'shmi, that the navi that will b'mezid speak something in my name. What does this mean? Zeh misnabe mashalei shama. He speaks and he says a prophecy of what he did not hear from Hashem. It says in the pasuk, he speaks in the name of Hashem. So the pasuk there says, "Asher esashaloi tzivisiv." Right. In the beginning of the pasuk it says, He's saying a thing in Hashem's name which Hashem did not tell him. And then the continuation of the pasuk it says, "V'ashaloi tzivisiv." I did not command him. What does this mean? That's even in a case where there was another navi that heard this from Hashem, but this navi did not hear it, and he's saying a nevuah that was not said to him; it was said to another navi, and he'll be chayiv misa for this as well. And then it says, "Vashiyidabe b'shem elehim acherim." He speaks nevuah in the name of Avodah Zarah. Zeh amasnabe b'shem avodas kechavim. Uksiv, and what does the pasuk conclude here and says? Umeis hanavi hahu. That this navi is chayiv misa. Now, what misa is this? V'chol misa amur b'Torah stam. Anytime he uses the term misa in the Torah and it does not specify which one, eina elo chenek. This is the misa of chenek. Now, HaKodesh is Nevuasai, the Navi that holds back a Nevuah. V'mevatel divrei Navi, one that disregards the words of the Navi. And V'navish avi al divrei atzmai, a Navi that does not fulfill the prophecy that he himself heard. Misasan b'dei shemayim. Their Misa is only in the hands of Hashem. What's the source of this? The Chsiv, there's another pasuk where it says, V'ha'ish ashaloi yishma al divrei. The pasuk there goes on to say, V'ha'ish ashaloi yishma el divrei el... This is the pasuk that was quoted before, that is chayiv misa b'dei shemayim. So the simple meaning of this pasuk is that lo yishma, that this is someone that disregards the words of a navi, does not follow. Now, but the Gemara here says the word yishma in the pasuk could be read in different ways. There is the way we have the Messiah of how it's read, yishma, but then the ksiv, you can read it in different ways. So kribei loy yashmiya. You could also read it as a navi that does not he does not let others hear his prophecy. This is the kovish nevuasa, he holds back his prophecy. And also the kribei loy yishama. You could also read it that is as loy yishama, which means that he himself does not listen to the nevuah that he says. El divrei. And the el dvarai, or el divrei, the pasuk says. So we see here in this pasuk, lo yishma can be read in three different ways. Simply, lo yishma means someone that disregards the navi. Lo yashmiya means the navi that does not say, and lo yishama means that he himself, the navi himself, does not listen to the prophecy. Uksiv, the pasuk says, Anoichi edreish me'imai b'dei shemayim, and I will demand from them b'dei shemayim. Hashem will give them the chi of misa.
Which word does it mean?
Yeah, that's yashmiya. Yashmiya. Okay, so now here the Gemara brings the different cases of where we find that this happened by Nevi'im, in the times of the Nevi'im. One that says a prophecy, something that he did not hear from Hashem. This is Tzidkiya ben Kanana that said a nevuah that he did not hear from Hashem. The Chsiv, the pasuk says, "Vayasle Tzidkiya ben Kanana karnei barzel." Tzidkiya made horns of iron. Now this is the story with Achav. There was a king from the Malchi Yehuda that was a tzaddik. I forgot his name right now. The king that was in the time of Achav. And then there was Achav, which was from the Malchi Yisrael. And he was a Rasha. And he had 400 prophets that were all Nevi'ah Sheka. They were all false prophets that came and testified that he can go and fight with Aram and he'll win the battle. And Tzidkiya also testified this. And not only that, Tzidkiya took he created these iron horns, and he said that this is what you'll fight with and you'll be victorious. And this was all false nevuah. So this is a case of a Navi Sheker. He didn't hear it from Hashem. But now the Gemara asks him this. What should have Tzidkiya done, that is? He actually heard this Nevuah from a spirit. As the Gemara here brings, Ruach Navais Atisei. The spirit of Navais came to him and said this to him, and therefore he repeated this to Achav, and he thought that this was true. Now, who is the spirit of this Navais? So the Gemara brings the Chsiv, it says, Vayem Hashem, the Hashem says, Mi Yiftes Achav, who's going to convince Achav that he should go and fight with Aram, and this will be his downfall, he's going to be killed. And Vayav Yipol B'Ramas Gilad, he's going to die in Ramas Gilad. Vayetzay Yud Aruach, a spirit came out, Vayamad Lefnei Hashem, and stood in front of Hashem, Vayem Ani Efateno, I will go down and I will convince him. Now this Navais was actually a relative, I believe, of Achav, and Achav killed him. So now the spirit of Achav wanted to take, spirit of Navais, that is, wanted to take revenge of Achav, and this spirit says, I'm going to say this Nevuah, I'm going to tell him this. So this was the spirit of Navais that came to him. Vayem Hashem says to the spirit of Navais, Tifte, you go and persuade him, V'gam tuchal tzeva seken. You'll be successful and go and do this. Now, what does this mean? The Gemara teaches this pasuk. Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda said, "My tzei." What does it mean when it says in the pasuk tzei? Hashem says to him, "Tzei mimechitzasi." Go out of my mechitza, of my place. And my ruach. What ruach is this? Who? Rabbi Yechanan says, "Ruach shel Navais HaYisraeli." This is the spirit of Navais Yisraeli that was killed by Achav. So, what's the Gemara's question? Tzidkiya heard this nevuah from this spirit of Navais. So he thought that it's a real nevuah. That's why he repeated it. So why is this? Why is he chayiv misa b'dei shamayim? Because he repeated a nevuah that he did not hear from Hashem. How is he to know? Answers the Gemara. Havalei lemeidak. He should have been medayik more. He should have analyzed to see and to realize that this is a nevuah that's not from Hashem. How would he know this? Says the Gemara K'der Rabbi Yitzchak, based on what Rabbi Yitzchak said. The Amar Rabbi Yitzchak said, Signain echad eile lekam neviim. There could be times where the same idea is being shared from Hashem with different prophets. But ve'ein shnei neviim misnabim b'signain echad. However, it's impossible that you should have two prophets that should repeat and say a nevuah in the exact same language. Right, so that when it says here in the Gemara signa in the first time, it means the same idea. When it says signa in the Gemara the second time, ein shnei neviim misnabim b'signa echad, it means two neviim that are repeating and saying the nevuah with the same exact language. That's impossible. Now the Gemara says, well, you see two neviim that heard the same idea, but they said it in a different language. Ovadia Amar, when Ovadia said his nevuah, so what did Ovadia say? Zadin lipcha hishiecha. So the zadin of your heart will take you away. So he used this kind of term. This is about the downfall of Edom. Yirmiyah used a different expression in his nevuah. He said the lashon of teflatztecha, heishi eischa, zadin libecha. So he used the word teflatztecha, and that will take away your heart. So we see two nevuahs, one from Evadia, one from Yirmiyah about the downfall of Edom, but they didn't use the exact same language. Now here though, by the case of Tzidkiya, when he said his nevuah for Achav, Vahani, here, they all said the nevuah with the exact same language, that Achav will go out and he'll be victorious in the battle, and they use the same lashon, Shema Mina, like kulam kamri. This itself is proof that what they said is nothing, it's not a real nevuah. That's how Tzidkiya should have known that this is not true. But the Gemara still asks on this. Maybe he did not know this that Rabbi Yitzchak said. He didn't know this. So therefore he didn't realize that it's a nevuah of Sheker. Says the Gemara, no, still he should have known, because Yehoshaphat Hava Asam. Yehoshaphat was there. Oh, this is the king, I believe, of Malchi Yehuda, which was Yehoshaphat, and he was a tzaddik. And the Ka'amalahu, and he said to them, the Chsiv, so he pointed out to them that he's not trusting all these 400 Nevi'im that were Nevi'ei Sheker. Vayeme Yehoshaphat said, Ha'ein pon Navi, is there no other prophet over here that will prophesize? Meaning he did not trust them, he wanted to hear from a Navi Emes. Amalei, so Achav says, Ha'ika Kol Hani, you have all these Nevi'im over here that are saying this, 400 Nevi'im he had. Amalei, so Yehoshaphat said, Kach mukumblani, mi beis avi abba, I have this tradition, I know this from my grandfather, Signa nechad oile lekam neviim. The same idea could be shared by more than one prophet, but ve'ein shnei neviim isnabim b'signa nechad. But you can't have two prophets that say in the exact same language, and all these 400 neviim that are saying the exact same thing, they're all liars. They didn't hear this from Hashem. Okay, so this is the story where you see a case of Tzidkiya that said a prophecy that he did not hear from Hashem, and he should have realized this when it was pointed out by Yehoshaphat that they're all Nevi'ei Sheker. Now, one that says a prophecy that it was not said to him, but it was said to another Navi, to a colleague of his, but not to him. Where do we find this? Chananya ben Azar. We find this by Chananya ben Azar. The Ka Yirmiyah b'Shuk Elyon. Yirmiyah was in Yerushalayim in the upper marketplace, and he said a prophecy. Ka Yamar Hashem Tzvayis Hineni Shoyver Es Keshes Elam. I will break the Keshes of Elam. Elam is a country that's right near Bavel, and the Eibusha, he's saying in a Nevuah that the Eibusha will break this country of Elam. Now, Nasa Chananya Kavachaymer, Ba'atzmoy Chananya made a Kavachaymer, and he said, Ma Elam Shloi Bo Ela Lazarus Bavel. Elam is a country near Bavel that's coming to help Bavel to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, Hineni Shover Es Keshes Elam, I will break Elam. If so, Kastim Atzmam, the Kastim, which is Bavel itself. Allah has Kama V'Kama, definitely Hashem will break them. So then, when Chananya ben Azar heard this Nevuah from Yirmiyah, it wasn't said to him, it was said to Yirmiyah, and he heard this, what did he do? He came in the lower shuk in the marketplace in Yerushalayim, and Omar, he said a prophecy as if he heard it from Hashem. I will break the yoke from the king of Bavel, because this was based on the nevuah that he heard from Yirmiyah. So he said a nevuah that he didn't hear, but his friend heard. Rav Papa asks Abaya, what he said that Hashem will break Bavel was not even said to Yirmiyah. What was said to Yirmiyah is that Hashem will break Elam. Amalei, so Abai answers, Kivin this yav kavachayim lemidrash, since you can darshan with a kavachayim, command the itmer lei domi. So it's as if he heard this from Hashem. But who knew the nemalei? But it wasn't said to him actually. But it was said to Yirmiyah, and he was repeating what Yirmiyah said. Okay. Now later on, actually, there in the nevuah of Chananya ben Azar, he ended up saying nevuah sheker. But this is a case where he said a nevuah that Yirmiyah heard, and he made this kavachayim. What's the case where we find in Nach ones that said Nevuah in the name of Avodah Zarek, Nevi Abal, the Nevi Abal in this time of Eliyahu and Navi, where they said Nevuah in the name of Avodah Zarek. What's the case of one that does not share his Nevuah? The famous story of Yoina Hanavi that Hashem told him to go to the city of Nineveh, and he did not want to go to the city of Nineveh, and he went on the boat and he ran away to Tarshish. The whole story of Yoina, this is the famous story where he did not share his Nevuah originally. Then the one that is disregarding the words of a Navi, Kagain, this is a case where we find Chavrei de Micha, the friends of Micha. The pasuk there says, "V'ish echad mibnei neviim omer al reyeyo." One of them said to his friend, "B'dvar Hashem hikani," with the words of Hashem, "You should hit me." Hikani no, and vayimoin ish la kaisai, and he refused to fulfill this to hit him. Oksiv, and later on it says there, "Vayomer lo yana shaloi shamaita v'gaimer," because he didn't listen to the words of the nevuah that he was supposed to do. So later on the pasuk there says that hincha heilich miite v'hikcha ha'aryeh, and then he was then killed by a lion that attacked him. Okay, so this is also, Rashi brings that this was a nevuah also in connection to Achav, after he brought Hadad, which was the king of Aram, I believe, and he did not kill him, and he was supposed to kill him. Here Rashi says that the story over there is if you have Rachmanis on someone that he's supposed to kill and you don't kill him, that's what happened there, and therefore Achav then later had his downfall. So that was a case where you see that you were over on the words of a Navi. Now, the case of a Navi that does not listen and does not fulfill the nevuah that he heard for himself. This is Idoy Navi. The pasuk says, "This is what Hashem commanded me." And there in the pasuk it says that he was commanded that he should not eat and he should not drink. And then the pasuk goes on to say, and so there was another Navi that was there, and he said, "I'm a Navi like you." And then the pasuk says, "Vayeshev itay." He sat with him, and the pasuk there goes on to say, he sat with him and he ate and he drank, even though there was a nevuah that Hashem told him not to eat and drink. And later on the pasuk says, because he did not listen to what Hashem told him, and when he left and he went, he was encountered by a lion and he was attacked by this lion. Tana learned and taught in front of Rav Chisda, a Navi that does not share his prophecy, loike, he gets Malchus. So the Malchus that the pasuk is talking about here, as it says in the Rishonim, does not refer to the Malchus of the Malchus Menatayra, 39 lashes, but it's a Malchus that we give him in order that he should share his nevuah. There's no action that he's doing here that he would be chayav Malchus. By Malchus, according to most opinions, that has to be a Maisa. He's not doing anything. He's just not sharing his nevuah. Now, Amalei, so Rav Chisda says, "Man da'achal tamri ba'arbala." If someone is just eating figs of dates of a basket, lucky he would get Malchus. So his question is, "Man masribe." Who's going to warn him that he should say his nevuah? How do we know that he even has a prophecy to share? Amar Abaye, so Abaye says, Chaver and Nevi'eh, his friends, the prophets, they will share with him. So the Gemara asks, Mina Yadi, but how would his friends, prophets, know that he has a prophecy to share and he's holding it back? Amar Abaye, so Abaye says, we see in the pasuk it says, Kilo Yasa Hashem Lakim Davar Kim Gila Soidai, and then the continuation of the pasuk, it uses a plural term. It says, Gila Soidai El Avodav Nevi'im, that Hashem reveals his secrets to his servants, the Nevi'im, meaning not only one. The others, his colleagues, also know that he heard this prophecy and he's not sharing it. But still, maybe the nevuah that Hashem said to this one Navi, Hashem then took it back. Hashem took it back, and therefore he does not have to share this nevuah anymore. And the other ones don't know about this. So how could they give him a warning about this? It's asra suffix that maybe Hashem took back the nevuah. Says the Gemara, no, if Hashem took back the nevuah, Hashem would notify all the nevi'im that he takes back his nevuah. But by the case of the story with Yaina the Hadri Bey, where Hashem took back the nevuah, because what was the original nevuah? Hashem said that the city of Nineveh, he should go and say the prophecy to the city of Nineveh that the city is going to be ne'peches, it's going to be turned over. And then Hashem took back the nevuah. And Yaina was not notified about this, because Me'ekare, it says, Nineveh ne'peches, that Nineveh is going to be turned over. And Yaina was not notified when Hashem took back this nevuah. So Amri Lei, so they answered, Iu lo yada, that he did not know. Okay, I think you read it together. Mei kare Nineveh ne'peches Amri Lei. That in the beginning, it was said to him that Nineveh will be turned over. That was the nevuah, this expression. But Iu lo yada, Yaina himself did not know, ilu toiva, ilu ra. It wasn't that the nevuah was taken back. When it says turned over, it could be turned over literally, that it will be destroyed, or it can mean that the people of the city will turn over and change their ways. They'll do tshuva, and then the city will not be turned over. So therefore, over there, it wasn't the case where the nevuah was taken back. Okay, now hamavater al divrei navi, one that disregards the word of a navi, mino yada deyanish. How should the person know that this is a real prophecy, that it would be punished for this? Maybe the nevuah that he's hearing is not the true nevuah, and therefore he disregards the word of the Navi. And it says the Gemara the Yav le'ois, when the Navi shows him a sign to know that this is a true nevuah. What's the sign of a true Navi? So the Rambam says in Hilchos Yisai Da'atayra, when a Navi says a nevuah for the future and it's fulfilled, what he says happens exactly to the T, then you know that he's a real Navi, and then you must listen to him. By Miche, he did not give any sign, and he was punished. And says the Gemara, in a case where it's already clear, he has already a presumption, he's a tzaddik, and he's a Navi Emes, in such a case, then you have to listen to him. In a case where he's already muchzik, it's different, and then you must listen to him. Because if you're not going to say so, Avram Avinu by Haramiriya, Yitzchak. And when Avram says, I heard a prophecy from Hashem that I have to bring you as a carbon, how did Yitzchak listen to him? He didn't have any sign, but the answer is because he knew that Avram is a tzaddik, and then he must listen. Or Eliyahu Bahara Karmel. Eliyahu, when he came up to the Hara Karmel, Heichi Samchi Alei, how did everybody rely on Eliyahu and Navi to listen to him, that they should bring karbanis out of the Shchutei Chutz, and they brought a carbon outside of the Beis HaMikdash, which is not allowed unless you have the Hiras Shah of a Navi. How did they know Eliyahu was a real Navi? So the answer is Heichi the Muchzik Shani. If you know that this is a tzaddik and a Navi Emes, in such a case, you have to listen to him. So now here the Gemara, since it brought up the Avram Avinu, it's going to darshan the psukim by the Akedah. It says in the beginning of the parsha of the Akedah, Vehi achat dvarim eile, and it was after these words, V'alakim nisas Avram, and Hashem tests Avram. So what does it mean when it says achat dvarim eile? Om Rav Yechanan mishum Rav Yesi ben Zimra. Achat dvarav shel Satan. This is after the words that the Satan spoke. The pasuk says, "Vayigdala yelad vayigamal v'gomer," that by Yitzchak when he became older, vayigamal. So then Avram Avinu made a big party, and he invited everyone. Oma Satan lefnei Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So the Satan comes and speaks in front of Hashem and says, "Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, zoken zeh." This Avram Avinu, this old person, chanantoi lemei yeshana pri beten. You gave him at the age of 100 years old a child. Mikol sudish asa. From the whole entire party that he made, he didn't have one bird, whether a tayr or a geisel, a pigeon, to bring for you as a carbon. Amalai, Hashem says to the Satan, Klum masa el b'shvul b'nai. He made this entire party all for the sake of his son. And mani oimelai. If I will tell him, Zvach es bincha lefanai, that you should slaughter your son as a carbon for me, miyad zayvchay. Immediately he will fulfill this. That's what Hashem responded to the Satan. So namiyad, after this conversation, after these words of the Satan, v'alekim nisas Avram. So Hashem tests Avram Avinu. And then it says in the pasuk Vayeme kachna es bincha, take your son. It says es bincha, es yichidcha, asher ahavta, es yitzchak. Amar Reb Shimon bar Abba, ein no elo loshen bakasha. The term no here means that Hashem is begging and requesting of Avram Avinu. What is he begging of him? The analogy for this is from a king of flesh and blood. That there were many wars that he had to fight. He had one mighty warrior that he always fought for him, and he was victorious in all these battles. Then days later, it was a very, very, very strong and difficult war to fight. The king says to this mighty warrior, I beg from you, you should stand and be victorious in this war, so that then people shouldn't say that the wars that you fought and were victorious with before was not significant at all, because now you lost this war. So too the nimshal is, Hashem says, Hashem says to Avram, I tested you with many tests. There were 9 tests before this that Avram was tested, and you withstood all of them. Withstand this test, so it shouldn't be said that there's no significance to the previous test that you withstood. That's the Gemara here. It says this here in the Gemara and in the Medrash as well. There's a sikha from the Rebbe that explains this Gemara Barichas Gedayla and Chelik Chav Parshas Vayera. How could you say Ein Mamish B'Rishayim just because you didn't withstand this test? This was the hardest one. So just because of this, you say Ein Mamish B'Rishayim. So the Rebbe explains that this test is the real test of Avram Avinu that expresses the ultimate Mesiris Nefesh. Because by the Akedah, what Avram Avinu is doing has no tachlis and no milo whatsoever. Just to listen to the words of Hashem. That's it. It's absolute bittul. This is the real Mesiris Nefesh. So if he would not withstand this test, then they would say, Ein Mamish B'Rishayim, that the previous test that he withstood was not the real essence of Mesiris Nefesh. But now when Avram Avinu withstands the test of the Akedah, it's Megale, it reveals the Mafreya, that the other tests were also from his very essence with absolute bittul. The Gemara goes on to dash in the pasuk. It says, "As bincha, beis barim yeshli." So Avram said, "You say I should take my son. Which one? I have 2 sons." Hashem says, "As yichidcha, your only son." So Avram says, "Zeh yachad lima v'zeh yachad lima." Each one is his only son by his mother. Then after Hashem says, "Asher ahavta," the one that you love. So Avram says, "Tarvayu rechim relu." Both of them I love. And then he says, "As Yitzchak," that you should take Yitzchak. Now, why does Hashem go through all these details? V'kol kach lama. Why doesn't he tell him immediately take Yitzchak? Kedei shaloi titarev daitei olav. So he shouldn't say suddenly, and he will lose his mind when he hears this so quickly. Now, when Avram was going to the Akedah, Kodmai Satan Lederech, the Satan went ahead of him on the way and was trying to stop Avram of going to the Akedah. Amalai, the Satan tells Avram Avinu, Hanisa davarei lecha, tile, hine yesarta rabim, v'yudai mirofis techazek, koishlu yikimun, milecha. So ki atta tovi alecha v'teila. This is a pasuk that says in Iyov, I believe. Yeah, pasuk in Iyov over here says that is Hashem going to test you? Hanisa davarei lecha tila. Hashem is going to test you with such a thing that's going to make you weak. Hine yasarta rabim. You rebuked many. You taught many. V'yadayim rofes techazik, and you were mechazik many with weak hands. Koshri kimim milecha. Your words stood up those that are weak. Hashem is going to tell you such a thing, to do this, to sacrifice your son and make you so weak. So he was trying to prevent Avram from going. Avram answers him, Ani b'tumi elech. I go with my sincerity. And he continued to go. The Satan tells him, you fear Hashem and you're doing this, but this is your foolishness. This is you should not rely on Hashem for this. That will be your downfall. So Avram says, Zacharna mihu naki avad. Remember, you should realize, who is the one that's pure that loses out from being pure and listening to Hashem? Nobody. So Kivin the Chaza, as soon as the Satan saw the Leika Shmiele, that Avram is not listening to him, Amalei, the Satan tells him, Ve'elai dover yugunav. To me, I heard words that are stolen, meaning Kach Shamaytim Echeri Apargit. I heard from behind the curtains. I heard something, and I can tell you, Hasel Laila, that it's the lamb that's going to be brought for a Naila. Ve'en Yitzchak Laila. Yitzchak is not going to be for Laila. Amalai Avram told him, Kach oinche shel badoi. This is the punishment of one that lies. Shafila amar emes, even if he says something which is truth, ein sheimeloi. Now he's not going to be listened to. But that doesn't mean that Avraham Avinu at this point actually knew this, that Yitzchak is not to be brought for an Eilah, because he only found out later. But even though the emes is that here the Satan was saying the truth, but this is the einish that Avraham did not listen to him. Rab Levi Omar, going back to what the Gemara said before, what does it mean in the pasuk when it says "Vayihi achar advarim ha'ela"? After which words? So Rab Levi Omar achar dvarav shel Yishmael Yitzchak. This is after what Yishmael told Yitzchak. Amar Yishmael Yitzchak, ani gadol memcha b'mitzvahs. I'm greater than you in mitzvahs. Shata milata ben shmeini yamim. You had the bris milah on 8 days old. Vani ben shleish aser shana, and I was 13 years old, and I still agreed. Amalai, so Yitzchak says to Yishmael, be'ever echad atam megarabi. You're enticing me, or you're antagonizing me with what you did, the mitzvah of bris milah with one aver. If Hashem would say to me that you should slaughter yourself completely for me, I would be ready for this. And miyad, after these words, that's the ba'achad varamele, v'olikim nisas Avram. Hashem tested Avram with the test of Akedas Yitzchak.